Well, good afternoon and welcome to our first Tell Me More session. I remember myself sign to says to unmute as I welcome my guest Laura Terrill for our Tell Me More, Ask Me Anything kind of session, just to kind of reflect on how this day went. What were some of the themes? What did we hear? What are some of the messages? As we finish our first day of pre-recorded sessions, live recordings, live sessions, podcast recordings, and of course, conversations on social media. So welcome, Laura.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
And Laura, actually, we owe a huge thank you because Laura is the person who helped or lead and direct the review of all the session proposals that we got for this year's summit, and which is not an easy task to review what people have in mind and sharing their great ideas. So I know Laura is
It's a
really familiar
pleasure to
with.
see what people were thinking about.
Yeah,
And
it's
now
good.
I have several sessions I want to watch
So do I.
after today and tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of course,
Hmm.
a virtual summit with pre-recorded sessions. We want to create these live opportunities for people to interact, but we also know that people appreciate being able to go back and watch sessions at a later time. So
Hmm.
yeah, let's just talk about how they went. We started the morning off with Heather, our actual teacher of the year, and she shared some great stories, and I really thought some really important points for teachers to hear. So much of a conversation and PE and training always happens to be around how can we make it easier for the kids? How can we make it better for the kids? How we can get better results of the kids? Which is great. I'm kid fan number one, obviously. Um, but she also thought it was really important to kind of think about teachers too. How can
From
you
a
make
teacher perspective, yeah.
yeah, from teacher perspective, how can you make it fun for you again? How can you
Yeah.
make it meaningful for you, the teacher again? Which I thought was
I
a really
really
great.
appreciated her approach because I thought it was super realistic. The one that just jumped out at me and I wrote down was play, you're in it for the long game,
Mhm.
which I think a lot of teachers are perfectionists. And so they get frustrated and they want to do it all and they want to do it all right now. And I think she did a great job of reminding us that, we're all good, we're doing our best, and we're all in different places. And it's okay to say, I don't know, I want to learn more. It's okay to admit to your students. And I loved her little anecdote about after you've tried it. Now I'm curious about what you thought about what we did. I mean, she was very specific about giving names. She didn't have the answer. She's tried it different ways. She herself had experienced different ways. And now she's going to ask her students. So that's the long game approach. We'll try something. It might work, it might not. And then we keep going. And I just thought it was very reassuring. So, Heather, thank you for that message. If you
Yeah,
happen to be listening right now.
yeah, I agree. Um, and that's something that happens to teachers a lot, right? They try to do everything. They go to a conference, a real one in person, or even a virtual summit like this. And now here you are. You have dozens of sessions each day, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. 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 You get all these ideas. You want to do everything. And it's really easy to fall in that trap of wanting to change, perhaps even overhaul your entire approach to teaching, which could be just as dangerous as not making any changes, right?
I think so. I think that, that particular approach is just desperation because you are feeling that you have to do this or you have to do that in order to be effective in your own classroom. But the messages of today really reminded me, and I hope others, that it's about looking at your learners and knowing your learners, building trust, as one of our speakers said today, with your learners, and then coming into a conference, Thomas, with what you shared in your last live session, knowing what your strengths are, and maybe you're looking to build on those, or knowing where your next opportunity for growth is. So, like in the podcast where she was reaching out to explore differentiation, you find that you're ready for that. And I think that that's a mistake. If we go through all these sessions and we just look at them for new activities, that's a real risk because you're not thinking about the bigger picture. And then you're going to try to do too much and you're going to wear yourself out again. And then we're back to where Heather started. calm down, take care of yourself, go slow. It's a long game. We have lots of time here.
I like to use the word readiness just now that you said, because I do think that's what it's about. Um, are you ready to make the kind of changes that you think you want to make? Even because one thing to see it, right? For example, I have all kinds of ideas for this house, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I would love to do that, but I'm not ready to
Well,
commit
and
to that
I
sort of
can go back
change.
into my own experience with one specific example. When I finally took the oral proficiency interview training, I was in my ninth or 10th year of teaching. And I honestly believe that it was so impactful for me because I was ready for that.
Mhm.
I had hit the point where I couldn't see growth in my own learners, but I didn't know what the problem was because I was still using a grammar paradigm. They couldn't do this verb tense, so they weren't getting better. But I do think if I'd heard about proficiency in my first year of teaching, it would have been one of many things, and I wasn't ready for the message.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was going to struggle with growth.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And people, it's going to be real difficult for teachers to be okay with where they are, because that's basically what we're
Yes.
saying, right? It's
Yes. But I
okay. And I
also
think
think
Heather,
that
you said that too. It's okay to do what you're doing right now.
Well, and there's so much pressure on teachers right now. So one of the phrases that just stood out to me was the hashtag, but it also encompasses a lot of thinking, the reinvent the classroom. And
Mhm.
we're thinking about that because of COVID and what we've experienced, which could mean a rush to do many things instead of stepping back and deciding, well, what is the focus? Trudy in the podcast talked about, well, we had to step back and we had to give up because I love that one quote I used a lot of time. Focus is a matter of deciding what not to do. So before you can add anything, you best think about where you're going to find space.
Yeah, that's something I ask teachers a lot when I do workshops or training. I often ask, so many presenters will do the, well, what did you learn today? What are you going to take away? Or what are three things you're going to try to do differently? And I often ask teachers the exact opposite. I often ask them, based on what we just talked about today, based on what you've learned or what you've heard, what are you going to stop doing? And that's
Mhm.
usually, as a presenter, actually much more insightful to me, because that means I know what they heard, or what they think I said. And in all reality, at the end of a conference session, a keynote, a pre-record session, you're not ready to make any kind of changes yet. You just heard it. It's just planting a seed in your head, right? And you probably have to hear that message, like you said, that message of proficiency. You probably have to hear it multiple times over multiple years before you're ready to receive it.
It's also that opportunity to stop and distill what you heard over 2 hours, 3 hours, even 30 minutes into a key takeaway
Yeah.
so that you can ponder it more. Because otherwise, our brains will just let it all go. And I might as well have done something a lot more fun than outside on a beautiful day instead of listening because I'm just going to forget it all anyway because I didn't make a mental note that here's one thing that might resonate. And I like what you said after I take something off my plate.
Yeah.
So,
And that's where, again, the TEL framework and Catalyst can help teachers a little bit, because it can help them bring some focus to their thinking, some focus to their selection, because that's the hardest part of going to any kind of professional learning event that has options. As much as we like choice, is almost too much choice, right?
mhm,
Large
mhm.
programs, lots of sessions, lots of things to see. But what do you want to do? And you feel like, oh, I've paid all this money, or in this case, it's free. But even still, you have committed the time. Like you want to, I got to take it in. I want to see all of it, because you have this. Oh, what if I miss the best session ever? But having some meaningful goals through TEL perhaps changes that, and maybe you just look for those two sessions who just target what you're trying to get better at, and you
Well,
ignore all
that's
the other.
also that thought. I forget even who said it that the magic bullet is out there, that there is a
No,
right way.
yeah, that's not the
That
whole.
came up today in one of the sessions too. There's no right way. It's finding a path for yourself and your learners
Yeah.
towards communication. So no one should be saying this is the right way, this is the wrong way. It is all possibly very valid if you're keeping your focus on a goal and communication. I did like that Heather kept stressing it's about communication in the real world.
But then how do you deal with, I know you were a supervisor in a former life and you
I
still work with
was.
teachers now. How do you deal with those teachers who, because I've been asked that question multiple times, Thomas, just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. Like, give me the lesson plan, give me the stuff, do the things, and I don't have to believe in it. I don't have to agree it. Just give it to me and I will do it. Just tell me what you want me to do.
But I won't answer that question
Of course
because
you
I
will.
will say, here's what I want your learners to be able to do.
Mm,
Here's the why. This is why. This is the what. I want them. That's our can do statement, our goal. But the how you get them there, that's you.
yeah.
You're the teacher and you know your learners, and your classroom is different. And how is what you are being paid for. Writing curriculum might be at the district level. That's not something you do. You're given your curriculum, but you always have choice in how you prepare your students for that. And a teacher who wants to be told how, you can flip that question back around and say, I can't answer that question for you and your learners, but what training do you feel that you need? What do you need to focus on in order to be able to answer the how? And that's where TEL comes back in, Thomas.
Hmm.
You can then show them those criteria and those sub-criterion and say, of all of these, which one is going to help you the most? Now I can support you. You've identified your goal. I can support you. But a lot of times the teacher that's asking that question is just being oppositional. So you have to engage them and try to move them forward,
Yeah.
which is not easy.
Which is not easy. That's correct. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So what other messages did you hear today?
I think I really picked up on the fact that we need to make sure that our curriculum is relevant.
Hmm.
What matters? Are we looking for access in the real world? Are we helping our students? I especially appreciated, I'm probably going to forget who said it, but it was in one of the podcasts where when she asked her students if her class had helped them to understand the world better. And she said her students said, yes, they did understand the world better. And I think as an educator, I would be so happy if I knew I had stayed in the target language and that everything we had done had been communication in the target language. But then here's that goal. We're not using the language to learn language. We're using the language to learn about the world we live in. And I think when we make choices about what we teach and how we teach it, we need to keep in mind that it has that real world purpose so that our learners feel like what they're doing is valuable and worth their time. Because we're competing with video games. And if we can't provide something that is worth their time, valuable, and make them aware of it, we can't tell them to learn it. We have to build them towards that learning. And I just thought she was talking about the sustainable development goals in particular, but bringing in that real world, or bringing in that there were no accents on names on jerseys, that's important. And so I think that when we're saying, why are we doing what we're doing? It's what Paul has there. Are we keeping the curriculum relevant and worth their time? That's just critical. Without that, we can't accomplish much.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
Um.
Skimming our comments over here.
Yeah.
Wondering if any of our audience has questions. But if
Well,
you have another one, go for it.
no. I remember a question from the previous live session on TEL. Perhaps we can talk about that, because that kind of dealt with reinventing the classroom as well and getting people to buy in, or maybe letting go. And it was a question that Meredith asked. She said, what do you recommend for a department or a course team to do regarding digging in with Catalyst? I've done it as an individual, but I'd love to pull my team in. And I get that question actually quite a bit of how do you do it on a department level, because there's always that one person, Meredith, right? Who is like gung ho, wants to do the whole thing, but the rest of the department might not have the readiness yet for wherever you are, and so, but that's okay too. We've seen it done in some of the in some of the schools who've been working with TELL for a lot longer. I know some departments just, to kind of go through some of the self-assessments together as a group and try to come and identify some departmental goals. It's okay to have your own personal goals, but maybe there's some departmental goals. And I know there was a department I worked with in Memphis, and they had common planning period, or common lunch period. It was, I believe, it was, yeah, planning and lunch together, which was nice. Very, very, very uncommon, I would say, but it was very nice. And based on their goals, they then created professional development for themselves. So every week it was somebody else's job to help them grow as a group. But they had used TELL to identify those goals at the beginning of the year. And because it was their goals, it wasn't something a principal told them, it wasn't a district mandate, there was much more ownership in it. And it wasn't me trying to convince you of something. I was like, well, we all want to get better at this. That's what we said. So here's my way of how I'm trying to get better at it. What do you think about it? And it was really effective, and in fact ended up becoming a model for all the other departments. So I think there's a way and space for using it as a department. Certainly, it would allow you to, how do I say this, peek into your colleagues' classrooms a little bit, because I know that doesn't happen very often either. If you have that kind of culture where that's possible, because you do share documents from your classroom, sometimes it's hard to get into another classroom. Your schedule is done online, you can't go, and certainly your planning period is filled up with a million other things for you to go visit your teacher. But maybe this would allow you to see, today in class I did this really cool thing and it worked. My kids were able to do something they've never done before. Well, here's the video, and you can certainly use Catalyst to do that and have then conversations around it.
I think you can also just start with the fact that it is a platform, first of all, that's free. And secondly, that avoids all of the emails, the randomness of communicating within a department, looking for the lost email. So even just building that as a message board, starting small and then building into it as a discussion forum. A lot of schools require departments to name their goals, or even worse, the school takes on a goal and says everybody is working on this. Well,
Right.
then you can use TELL, which could be good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It could be then you go into TELL and you say, well, that goal deals more with learning experiences. Let's see what the corresponding descriptor is with world language teachers. Let's name it. Let's find out which domain we're in, which number, what are the sub-criterion, and then we're going to really impress an administrator when we can show them this electronic portfolio of the work our department did. Because as a department chair, also in my former life, I often had to justify and document what we did during our department meetings. So rather than writing something on the side, I'd have my comments from my colleagues right here. I might have an article that we all read and commented on, and then I might have what you said, like that more adventuresome teacher, that one that's way out there, like Meredith, might be posting that video. But the fact that a teacher takes a risk causes another teacher to take a risk. So pretty soon you're aligned to the district goal, the building goal, but you're still using Catalyst as your discussion forum, your learning platform, because that's not available to most teachers K-12 in any way, size, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And yes, you can go out and use different web tools to create it, but it's like students, too many tools drive teachers crazy. So Catalyst might be the one you learn to use well, instead of looking at this platform, and this platform, and trying to use them all.
I like what you say about the platform and trying to connect it to what Heather said this morning as well about taking care of yourself. Because I think what Catalyst can perhaps also do is show you how much you've grown. It's really easy to forget, right? You're all gung ho in August or September, and you have all these lofty goals, and then who knows what happens in your school year, and then you kind of barely making it to the end, and you don't really know, have I gotten any better at it? Or did I just survive the year again? And I think having that one place platform, library, reflection journal, evidence collection, um, really allows you to kind of like, oh, look at me. Look what I have done. We ask teachers to do it for their kids, right? We want kids to have portfolios of what they're learning. Why shouldn't you have a portfolio of your own growth? And this is not a portfolio for evaluation. So I apologize. I know some people have to do that, and it sounds like double the work. But I feel like there are two different purposes. Like one is for you to keep your job, and to jump through the hoops, so to speak, and to do what's required. And the other one is truly for you.
But I think those two can merge.
Oh,
If
absolutely,
my
yeah.
administrator tells me I have to keep a portfolio for the SMART goal that I wrote, as long as it's not the one you shared in your previous session, I can use Catalyst to document my work.
Mhm.
And then because, often the presentation of the work is more important than the work itself. So because it's packaged and it looks organized and formatted, you're going to meet the requirement easily. But then because you took it seriously, you're also going to know that you did move yourself forward, or you're going to know, like Heather suggested, what question do you want to ask your students at the end of the year for feedback on what you tried, so that you're thinking over the summer, what next? So where do I go from here? And that might be your strength, and you stay in it for a while now and celebrate and keep getting better before you look for another goal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that'll be good.
I mean, that's kind of what the message was from all of our participants today in the live sessions. Focus in, gain confidence, do what you do well, then reach out, go for that next thing, collaborate. And that's what Catalyst lets you do also, that collaboration. We've got a couple reminders today that I think are really important. Don't just collaborate in world language.
Mhm.
Reach out to others, because there's a lot being written out there about literacy, about, digital tools, that if all you do is talk to world language teachers, you might not stay on top of other trends that are so important. So, bringing that article in, looking at it, talking about it with your department, but it was written about grading, but it wasn't written by a world language teacher, but you're being reflective about it, because grading is the focus of your school this year. Grading is the focus of a lot of schools for multiple years, because nobody has the answer.
Yeah. So here's a question from Lee. What are some groups that are there and have
So that's a little different, right? So like
Mhm.
when I work in Catalyst, like if I do a PEARLL Institute, which I'll do later this summer, then I create a Catalyst group for that audience. And then you join it. And that's a private group. But it doesn't really give you groups that you can just join because you're interested in a topic
You could,
per
it's just it
se.
hasn't worked out that way. So Lee, there's the option for that, but for some reason, what Laura just described is what seems to be happening more often than not, is that people use it to create private
I could
groups.
see how you could form a group though,
Yeah,
easily yourself.
sure.
Like you meet somebody you really enjoy talking to at a conference and you want to extend that conversation, you can create your group, invite that person who might invite another person, and then you'll have your own group in Catalyst.
Yeah.
So there are some groups that are forming that way, but it's like you enjoy it. You can post your evidence and share it with the world and solicit others who are interested to come with you. So you can think about it that way.
Yeah, and we had a question about telling more about Catalyst, and I would recommend watch the session that was on at about an hour ago. Um,
Well, and also don't forget that on that Catalyst link that you just posted at the University of Oregon, there are all kinds of
Yeah,
tutorials that show how to use it.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking through my notes for the day, just seeing. Oh, you know, the other thing that I wanted to comment on? There was a really strong focus on getting out into the community,
Hmm.
which we know is our weakest standard from ACTFL.
Yep.
And I just appreciated the reflection on, I think it was Trudy who was sharing, how do we just nudge them out into using their languages with real people in unscripted ways. And I think we all have to think more about that because that's what makes it real world and relevant.
It gives a purpose, right? I mean, we've been talking about this thing like, oh, don't just teach language, teach them to communicate. Well, that's a really easy thing to say, but communities gives them the purpose, the
Hmm.
why of why we
Hmm.
really have to communicate, right? If you don't give them an audience, it's still just learning language. Okay, so it's language learning in the modes, um, but it's still just for madame or senora.
So I
And
always
they need to
say,
know that. They need to know it, right? Are we just learning this for you? Or are we
someone,
learning this
yeah.
because next week we have to go and do something, interact with people in the real world?
And someone did say in one of the podcasts, so what kinds of projects are you giving?
Mhm.
Well, I think that's a really loaded question. Um, if the audience for the project is only the classroom or the teacher, the case could be, why are you giving a project at all?
Yep.
So you really, when you're going to invest that much time, probably want to think about audience. And that audience can be another community member or another class or another school that you're connected with. But if not, what's the project for? So it all goes back to that realism, real world purpose for the choices we make.
Great. Well, I've told many people this many times, but talking to you, Laura, is always one of my favorite parts
Likewise.
of my job. Um, I think, yeah, because I always learn something talking to you, and I just love the way you
Likewise.
explain these things. So thank you for joining me
My
for this
pleasure.
this half hour life. Um, and
Anyone that's listening should know that Thomas and I challenge each other behind the scenes all the time. We
but
enjoy that
that's how you
relationship.
grow, right? Yeah.
That's how you grow. That's what
Yeah,
makes conferences so great.
absolutely. So yeah, so thank you. And then there'll be a new set of live sessions tomorrow. There'll be a new set of pre-recorded sessions premiering tomorrow as well. And if you haven't yet, I hope you will share with your colleagues that this is still available. It's certainly free. It's not going away anytime soon. You can use the uh, the Tell Me More hashtag. We hope that you share the website or any other way over social media to get the word out, because it is an important summer. Um, it's important. I love PD in the summer because you don't have the urgency of today. When you go to a workshop during the year or PD, you're worried about what your kids are doing back in your classroom. You're worried about the sub, and so yeah, summer is a time to perhaps go a little deeper, perhaps with a little more focus this time to help reinvent yourself so that you can be a happy teacher come the next school year. So
Thanks,
thank you.
everyone, for joining in. See you tomorrow.